Hey, it's 28 millimeter RPG. So, a little bit of recap on the game session last night, which was wow, that was a long session. And I didn't realize it was that long because we were into it, I guess, and well, I was saying at the end of the session, I do have a video of what notes I put together for this thing, and as you all know, my notes are kind of sparingly, they're vague, but they're vague for a purpose because you don't want to get too detailed, and then it doesn't happen. So that's the thing is when you create something of a sandbox in this kind of a situation, especially with Traveler is such a huge sandbox. Anything could happen. Um, that you have to kind of you have to prepare the idea that yeah, a lot of this stuff won't happen in the game. I mean, it's cool if it did, but and then when you eventually do see the video where I've done the prep, you'll see what kind of a game it could have possibly turned into, and some of the cool ideas that may have been put into it. However, things have changed and stuff like that, so you get to see the results of it as you're watching the game and realizing, oh, this is a totally different thing than what Rick had planned. Well, not planned, but had designed things for. So, anyways, so yeah, when you're doing prep for these things, you gotta be what's the name for it? It'd be you have to be frugal. You got to be you have to pinpoint only the most important stuff, you know, and think of things that could work into the situations, stuff that should come up when they roll the snake eyes, because I don't always like to have a failure being something that just spontaneously happens right at the moment. Sometimes it's got to be something that lingers and festers and suddenly becomes this really bad thing later on. So sometimes you want to do that. Sometimes you want to use those snake eyes and Traveler to be like a GM intrusion in Cipher system, where you just introduce something additional to the situation to further complicate the whole situation at hand. But anyways, so the beginning of the session, um, I wanted to do kind of like a little bit of a recap kind of thing. So I think, and as I was going through the game, and I came to a realization, hey, you can use that week of jump flight, in jump space to kind of, bring up certain things, certain aspects of the NPCs and characters, interesting things that may pop up about the characters themselves. Um, for example, it does make a good like recapping, just to get back into the characters again, because it's been a couple of weeks that we had the last Traveler session, and we I wanted to have a little bit of a uh, uh, and little dialogue between the characters to kind of get them back into their headspace again, and to realize, oh yeah, that happened, and oh yeah, yeah, poor that character died. Oh yeah, and there was that situation between these two characters, and oh yeah, now we got these new people on board, so now we got to add a little bit of you know uh, who are these people? And that's the thing is I don't like to just and you'll probably notice this is the characters aren't introduced as their characters that did this and that and blah 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 blah. You get introduced to them as through their actions and through how they're being portrayed in the game. So because I I'm one of those guys that would rather find out things about a character through a movie as you're watching the movie instead of being given a bunch of um, background information right off the bat, some exposition on the whole thing. That doesn't work with me. It may work with a lot of people out there, and granted, yeah, a few of you are out there that like that exposition and maybe like all the little preamble on the characters and NPCs and whatever. That's your choice. Not every movie appeals to um, everybody, and my tastes in certain movies, yeah, I'm really bad. Like I've said before, I'm really bad with watching movies because I will pull apart scenes and I will analyze them as they're going along, and I'll be trying to figure out why certain scenes are there, because to me every scene is important, and that should be how movies are constructed anyways. Is there are reasons for each of those scenes to be there. It's to show something, show an ability, show something that's going to pop up later on. It's gonna show maybe something like a like the embroidery needles or something in one scene, and then later on those are going to be picked up by the protagonist to try to kill the antagonist. Might be used as a weapon later on. It's stuff that pops into the view of the watcher and will be used later on, so in certain ways or certain aspects. But and that's how I view the art of movie making, and it's a little different when it comes to role-playing games, because it's, first off, it's not a movie, but you're trying to, because the pacing's different, because you wish you could have the 8 second scenes, like back and forth kind of thing. I mean, you could try to do that, but it doesn't seem to pan out that way. It's you have a lot of innuendo between the characters, and stuff happens, and sometimes a scene may drag on a little longer than the 8 seconds that you're supposed to have it in a in a clip. And yeah, so having the preamble going on as they're flying through jump space is I'm going to use that a little bit more to kind of get players back into their headspace, and that I'm going to develop more later on. So that's one of the things that I've written down. Next was, there wasn't a lot of like action, but there was a lot of intrigue in figuring out how to, they wanted to figure out a way to land on the planet without causing too much alarm going on, and they were discovering things about the planet as things were going on. I used the NPCs a lot more to kind of push uh, the start of the game. to push the initiative. So I hope maybe a few of you may have seen that. Um, and then there was a couple of times where we did do a bit of Q&A, but it wasn't a lot, fortunately. I do want to keep that back and keep with the in character role playing aspect of asking questions, and the players are doing really good with a lot of stuff. So I really commend them on their roles and how they were portraying them. Of course, room for improvement for all of us, and that's gonna keep on going, and we'll see what happens. There was a couple of things once you correlate my video on the notes when I pull that one out about this session. And you can see there's a couple of things I probably could have popped in there that I had some ideas for. And but I didn't think it was right at the right time to do something like that yet. But you know, maybe it could have helped. Maybe it could have added some action, some pacing and stuff. Um, I don't know. You don't know until it actually happens whether or not that would occur. Um, we had a little bit of fun um, with the technology in the game, and it kind of and the reason why I did that was because I remember a couple of videos a couple years ago where they were showing kids trying to use an old dial-up phone, and they gave them a dial-up phone and said, "Okay, phone phone number," and the kids like looked at the dial-up phone because they're so used to handhelds, and Androids and stuff like that, or iPhones, and they're looking at it going, how do I press these numbers and stuff like that, and it's just a really weird thing because we're so technologically advanced, but yet you try to retrograde your technology back, and people are kind of stumped, and it's an interesting thing, and I also went to Dawson Creek about a year ago. Me and the wife went there. We went to the museum, and the museum is basically the old. It's if you know anything about Dawson Creek, it was basically the beginning spot where it was staged for the Alaska Highway, and there was a lot of influx of people coming in to the region and building that highway and continuing on from that point onward. So it was kind of a good stepping stone base for that project. And there was a lot of different things there, how they use, the telephones back then, how they had different devices that you would never use today because everything's manufactured now out of your hands, and you're not using any of those abilities anymore where you can fix your own clothing and stuff like that, and all these ingenious little items that they've had created and or hand built in order to make stuff or repair stuff. It was really interesting to kind of look at that and go, wow, I remember I remember my grandparents had this thing, and I always wondered what it was for, and then I found out what some of these things actually did, and it was pretty cool to reflect on that and realize how valuable those things were when you don't have a massive manufacturing base in order to rely on. and stuff to think about, especially nowadays. With recession and stuff like that going on. You know, you're kind of like pondering the idea. Hey, maybe we should have a garden, and grow some of our own food and stuff like that. How do you do that? It's stuff that they had learnt back then that we've kind of lost touch with. So the game was kind of verging on that kind of idea that, hey, yeah, we're super advanced and all this stuff, but we go to this planet and everything's so weird to us. And we had a good little discussion at the end of the game session. We hung out for maybe an extra half hour and yacked about things, and it was pretty funny. Some interesting things that we popped up with about the game, and we always have a good discussion afterwards. Um, about things pertaining to the game, and maybe some other things that we're talking about, because Spencer, me, and Josh work the same place, so uh, we always have a good story or two at work or something like that occurred, because yeah, work retail is sometimes it's a crazy time at this time of the year too, because of all the things going on. But yeah, talking with Gordon and having a good time there. Gordon, he's a good role player. I enjoy him, being in the group and everything, and I think he spurs on a lot of good things for Spencer and Josh to reflect on and adapt and adopt for themselves. So I really, and that's the thing. If you can get your players to all learn off of each other, yeah, that's a cool thing. Josh didn't. He's one of those guys that wants to take his time to think something through. But the whole thing about that, and I can see why he wants to, because he wants to have that kind of the movie kind of aspect where, yeah, the protagonist is does a thing, and it's the right thing to do. However, nowadays you get more entertainment out of a Tarantino movie, which is one of those movies where the protagonists do a thing spontaneously. It may not be the right thing, or it's something they think is the right thing, but it doesn't turn out to be the right thing, and it causes more problems down the line. And that's the whole cool thing about those kinds of movies, is it's not about characters doing something and pulling it off, no problem. It's about characters doing a thing and it fails spectacularly, and they have to deal with that. and it's funny, it's full of irony, it's full of all that kind of wonkiness of what life ends up being. And I mean, if everything went right, at with everything you did, then it kind of feels stagnating if you're trying to do that in a role playing game. You want to have those wonky things happen. You want players to sometimes not have that time to think something out in order to have those Tarantino movie moments, which I like. I like having my players do the Tarantino movie stuff. So something happens, they decide, okay, we're going to do this, and it's just totally not the right thing to do, but it's what seems to be the most practical thing to do at the moment. And and then they realize, oh, and that was part of the discussion at the end of the session too. Was they were talking to each other, saying, yeah, if we had, what we could have done was taken Sarek's body and chopped it in half, and then sold half of it to these guys, and then sold half of it to the. It was like, ew, it's just like, this is getting really weird. But it was funny discussion at the end, and it was cool. And that's why I said, yeah, you got to have those moments. It doesn't matter if your decision that you make at the time is right or wrong. It could be, you could think it's a right, it might be a totally wrong thing to do, but that's the funny and fun part about that part of role playing, is you get to find out what happens and watch it all unfold and crash gloriously like a train wreck, and you just can't stop watching it. So anyways, we had a good turnout with people showing up. There was people that stayed all the way through the 3-hour session, so I really appreciate those guys that stuck it out. I wish there was a little bit more action, like guns blazing and stuff like that. There's gonna be some. Don't worry, there's gonna be lots of guns blazing and stuff. Thing is, you had too much guns blazing, characters die. So if you like the characters, you don't want them to get killed. So but it is going to happen eventually. So that's the thing. Anyways, that's what I have to ramble on about, and I super appreciate all you guys showing up and doing that. I super appreciate my players, doing the things they do, and learning off of each other, and I appreciate it because I'm advancing more and more, learning more and more, and it's a challenge to play this way, but it's a fun way to play because I don't know what's going to happen as much as the players don't know what's going to happen. And that's fun for me, because if I knew everything that was going to happen, then I would be bored. So there we go. Thanks for showing up. And if you feel like it, subscribe. And hey, 50% of you are not subscribed. Just hit the button. You'll like my stuff. I'm serious. It's good information. You'll learn stuff like me.